The darkest days of British Leyland during its formation and early years were host to many seismic events. Cancellations of groundbreaking models such as the BMC 9X, and strikes that crippled the company's cash flow during its formation, strangling the development of new models. Mismanagement of car projects, workers and plants from the top, paralysing the company during its most crucial years. But there is one event, one car, one decision that to me symbolises the plight of Leyland in full. That is the lost prototype, the Metro 6 years early, ADO74, the Mini's replacement. This is the story of ADO74, a car that some say could have saved British Leyland, allowing it to establish itself in the lucrative supermini market. A car that would have been in a head-to-head battle with the best of the industry, cars like the Ford Fiesta and Renault 5. Hello everybody and welcome to this video. If you're not subscribed already, please make sure to do so. It really does help me out and you get to see more of this. More history videos, more cars and classics uncovered, and more projects like my Rover SD1, Rover 75 and Range Rover. What is your opinion on ADO74? Do you think it could have saved BL? And do you have any BL memories? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like the video if you liked it and share if you want other people to see it. But without further delay, let's get into this video on the lost supermini ADO74. To understand ADO74, we need to look at the automotive landscape of the time. British Leyland, formed in 1968, had a world of pain to contend with. Its inheritance of so many models and marques meant it had a considerable overlap, and that was fine if strategy was drawn up to both appease workers who were loyal to their brands and keep model lineups rational. Just a year after its formation though, it saw strikes that crippled volume production at some of its largest plants. Solihull, 3,000 workers would go on strike. That same day, 5 of its HGV plants went on strike in Lancashire for 3 days. 8,500 workers in total would stand idle. All of this while dealing with the financial fallout of a merger, the debt inheritance from the formerly independent companies, and of course paying the wages of hundreds of thousands of workers. BLMC from the start needed clear direction. It couldn't afford any missteps. Meanwhile, the company's model lineup was being put into place. The Austin Allegro and Morris Marina were signed off for production. But this was the first misstep. Donald Stokes and the executives team's strategy would be devised around something completely uncertain: the success of both cars. The Marina rushed into development, but a good car all round, and the Allegro, the ADO16 replacement, made to appeal to the sophistication of the continent, but without the one feature that could have made it a success: the hatchback. Times were changing, people wanted cars that could do it all. The versatility of the hatchback wasn't just becoming a trend, it was becoming a requirement. The age of the supermini was upon the European car market. The Autobianchi A1112 would set this trend in 1969. The Fiat 127 would follow. Big hitters such as Renault and Ford were starting their development on their superminis, the 5 and the Fiesta. Meanwhile, British Leyland had a hatchback, the Maxi, but it was simply too big. It wasn't a supermini. They did have the original, the car that started it all, the Mini, the car that laid the technological foundation for the supermini, with its front-wheel drive and transverse engine layout. But the Mini was a saloon car, it had no hatchback. Demand for the supermini grew and grew during this time, but it wouldn't explode quite yet. British Leyland still had time. Led by British Leyland's desire to succeed in export markets, the increase in demand across Europe, and the Mini's age, Harry Webster would be asked by the BLMC board to work on several proposals for this new emerging market. There would be several insect-named projects. Ant, a true Mini replacement, slightly bigger than the original, with a 750cc and a 950cc engine, available in 2 or 3 door body styles. Ladybird, a larger car, around 15 to 20 inches longer than the Mini and 2.5 inches wider, with its dimensions similar to the 127 and later Renault 5. This would be a true supermini, including larger engines from 900cc to 1100cc. The last would be Dragonfly. It would be proposed to be 24 to 30 inches longer than the Mini, taking it into Ford Escort territory, around the same size as the Allegro. Of the three, Ant and Ladybird would be pursued further. Dragonfly would be eliminated. It undermined the Allegro and moved too far away from the supermini segment, a rational decision by British Leyland's board. Harry Webster, being the genius he was, knew this sector was very trend-led. Superminis were becoming a fashion accessory. Therefore, who better to style the car than the most fashionable designer he had ever known, Michelotti. Michelotti's incredibly well-designed proposal for Ladybird would be rejected for one reason. British Leyland wanted to go it alone. They wanted in-house design. So they went with the Harris Mann version. The Ladybird, after this phase was completed, would be given its ADO number. Ant was dropped, being simply known as barrel car internally. Ladybird would be built to sell alongside the Mini. Market research had indicated to the board that the Supermini was gaining pace. Ford and many others were receiving the same data. Resources would be pumped into these programs by all major car companies. They knew the dawn of the Supermini was on the horizon. The development in Longbridge would begin to gather pace. It would run into issues, however. The wheelbase proposed would make it too hard to package effectively, resulting in development slowing. The team would move from the 86-inch wheelbase to a 90-inch wheelbase instead. Management were excited by the car's development, recognising that this could be the winner they needed. Some on the team would say they were too involved at times, but the buy-in was of course good for all parties. Marketing was also on board. This car had potential. It seemed all the people who knew of ADO74 in British Leyland knew it was going to be a winner. Technically, the car was coming together. Suspension would be the same as the BMC 9X, McPherson struts and trailing arms, which the Superminis of today still use. A tried, tested and proven design. But for the time in this new segment, quite forward-thinking. The engine would be the K-Series, which started development in 1972 alongside ADO74, although it wasn't meant to be confined to just one car. The power unit was a fully integrated single overhead cam design, with the gearbox in sump layout, essentially a bang up-to-date version of the A-Series power unit in the Mini. This was going to be BL's new engine for the decade, like the A-Series was for BMC, a highly adaptable power unit. The styling was never cemented, but several updates were made to keep the car up to date in the very fast-moving supermini market, currently led by the Europeans. Some examples shared elements with cars such as the Princess. Here are a few examples. One model would include some integrated bumpers that would have made manufacture and assembly much easier. Another model was even badged as the Mini, almost appearing to be a supermini version of the Triumph TR7. It's easy to see the Harris Mann influence. The interior design by Vic Hammond was functional and quite bold, a perfect complement to the contemporary ADO74. Meanwhile, on the shop floor and beyond, things weren't looking too good. In February 1972, during its development, Longbridge would strike, costing the company £4.5 million worth of production, around £51 million today, leaving its crucial lifeblood models like the Mini at a standstill. As British Leyland's cash flow depended on these models being produced and sold, the Marina workers would strike multiple times in the first year of its production. Revenue from another major seller was lost. In spite of the interruptions, ADO74's development was going well at home, but there would be some upheaval from Europe. British Leyland's international operations didn't have any faith in the car. They thought it was simply too conventional for its core customers, and lobbied the British Leyland board relentlessly to get resources diverted to another model. Around this time, the Renault 5 was becoming a force within the European market and at home. Ford would speed up its development of the Fiesta. Other manufacturers would also take note. The car was nearly ready. A semi-engineered prototype would appear in late 1972. A commitment was needed by the BL board to produce the car before development could reach its final stages. ADO74's proposed launch would be in 1974, but in 1973, Donald Stokes would appoint John Barber as managing director. John made no secret that he thought BLMC's future lay upmarket. Along with the scrutiny of the European lobby and now the managing director, ADO74's days were numbered. The board were then presented with the costs to get this car to production, £130 million. They were not impressed. Even though this included the new engine, the K-Series, there was no effort made, it appears, to slim the project down by using the A-Series like the ADO88 model did, which became the Metro. The project was cancelled. BL simply didn't have the buy-in at the top anymore to commit that amount of money to the project. In 1973, a war would begin, paralysing most of the world's oil supply and production. The resulting fuel crisis would drive sales of cars like the Renault 5. British Leyland would miss out on this sales boom. In fact, it would have a sales crash. BL's thirsty models at the time that were actually making it out of the factory saw lacklustre sales. It wasn't just the quality, it was the cost of fuel. Meanwhile, its volume models weren't making it out of the factory at all, cutting off the cars that could have competed with the economy cars flooding the market from Europe and beyond. George Turnbull would leave British Leyland in 1974 to work with Hyundai. The resulting car, the Pony, would help propel the company to success. Hyundai's first domestically designed car would draw parallels to ADO74. Not in design or intellectual property, but implementation. This was something British Leyland could have done. It simply chose not to. BL's management would be purged not long after the Ryder Report of 1975. ADO74 would be stored below Longbridge, forgotten. What could have been a success story for British Leyland turned into another missed opportunity. The models and some of the prototype engines languished below the plant, in the tunnels that stored some of BMC and BL's abandoned projects. ADO74 was now one of them. Ford would launch its Fiesta in 1976, a year after BL's decisions led to its spectacular collapse and rescue by the government. ADO74's end didn't come though with its cancellation. It ended much more miserably, when a fire in 1978 ripped through the Longbridge tunnels, destroying the prototypes. The ADO74 models were ash and dust, pools of molten metal. All of those hours of work, promise and enthusiasm turned to nothing. The Fiesta would become an automotive icon, produced for 47 years, selling more than 22 million units across its 9 generations until its end in 2023. All that is left of ADO74 though are images and memories of a car that could have conquered the B segment if implemented correctly. ADO88 would succeed it and be an incredible success. The Metro would sell millions of units. But what if the lifeline of the Metro was not used in 1980 to save the company, but in 1974 instead, to propel the company to new heights? What if British Leyland was proactive rather than reactive? Ironically, John Barber was right on the money. The remnants of British Leyland, Jaguar Land Rover, Aston Martin and so on are firmly premium. And with that, it's the end of the video. What is your opinion on ADO74, the lost supermini? How do you think it could have changed BL's fortunes? Let me know in the comments below. But as always, thank you for watching, keep watching and remember to subscribe for more of this, and I'll see you in the next one.